the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are private corporations that are motivated by control.
Welcome to the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, your guide, your shining beacon of liberty, Mark Claire.
Hey friends, welcome on back to the Lions of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 168. For today's show notes, featuring links to everything we discuss in the show, head on over to lionsofliberty.com/168. And if you enjoy this program, one way that you can help us out during this holiday season is by shopping through our Amazon affiliate link. This costs you nothing extra to do. Simply click on and bookmark our link at lionsofliberty.com/Amazon. We really appreciate the help, guys. All right, and here we are once again with yet another 2016 presidential debate reaction show. And we find ourselves once again taking some time out of our weekend to cover these Democratic debates. And I've assembled a brave crew of Liberty lovers to help navigate our way through things. First of all, here in the Lions of Liberty studios with me, someone who is on his phone right now, tweeting or something, hopefully turning off his notifications, Mr. Brian McWilliams.
I was actually reviewing some of our blog posts from last night to make sure I had my talking points down, Mark.
Okay, well then, you better have talking points, because I'm going to come to you expecting them now that you've hyped it up so much.
It's just purely going to revolve around Hillary and her burlap sack dress. That's the only thing I want to talk about.
I would hope so. And we're also now going to send it over to Leesburg, Virginia, with our good friend, some would call him the godfather of Lions of Liberty, Mr. Howie Snowden.
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
It's going all right, man. Have you recovered from this last week of debates yet? We had the GOP Warmonger Fest, and now this. You had to sit through all this stuff on a Saturday night.
This was, I wish they would actually start them when they say they would instead of lying about it.
Don't get me started on that.
And also, that was way too long for 3 people.
Yeah, I agree. And we also have a very special guest with us this week to discuss the Democratic debate. He is a man who's been all over even progressive websites. He's been on the Huffington Post, and he's also the founder of the Blue Republicans. He is, of course, Robin Kerner. Robin, how are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm pretty good. As good as I can be after sitting through, 5-6 hours of... Actually, if you include...
I know, it's work. Isn't it work?
It really is.
It's so banal, so much of it. It's just like, it's work. But I did it for you, Mark. I did it for you.
Well, thank you. We do appreciate it. And it's not just for us, though. It's for the cause of liberty all around. How this debate actually is going to help us advance liberty, I'm still trying to figure out, but that's the spin we're going to go with for now. No, I literally think I watched 8 hours of debates this week, because I watched the GOP undercard debate, and then the GOP main event, I guess you'd call it, and now this. So, oh boy, I don't even know where to start. So why don't we just start with the guy who's touting the fact that he has talking points, Brian McWilliams. What did you take from this thing?
Let's see. Starting off, let me just say that it was very frustrating, as always, watching Hillary Clinton speak. Every time she's asked anything, she doesn't say anything of substance. She dances around every topic, and it drives me insane. Specifically, I'll do this one thing, even though it's jumping forward in the debate. Did you guys enjoy how Hillary Clinton refused to answer the specific question she was asked on Libya? Any question, but Libya, the moderators, because they did a pretty good job. The moderators were really going after her on Libya. How much responsibility do you bear on this?
And what was her answer/non-answer?
There was the thing. There was no answer. She didn't even refer to her own culpability in the matter in any way, or her own actions.
As if she were an outside observer.
Right. It's like, I don't know. She basically, she was talking like a history professor, saying, well, here's what happened. Here's the state of things in Libya. Here's what Libyans are doing right now. And it's like nothing, no indication that she had any responsibility in anything that happened, or that she was advocating for this, and that as Secretary of State, a lot of this lands on her shoulders.
All right. So, and how did that go over with the Democratic crowd? Did they give a shit?
Oh, of course not. No, there were no boos. There was no what a horrible warmonger. Oh yes, this destabilizing and regime change is which that I want to hear. How much did you guys like the theme that people were talking about, except Hillary Clinton, of anti-regime change?
Well, it's more than we see out of most Republicans. That's for sure.
Yeah, true.
All right, well, that'll do it for
all right, guys, so thank you for joining us.
We've really run out of talking points.
No, it's great to see that brought up, but they're really just paying lip service to all these things. I mean, now we're hearing about crony capitalism. We're hearing about, is regime change a great idea? They're talking about these things, which is, a step in the right direction, but they're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah, I was very surprised to hear Martin O'Malley, of all people, bring up crony capitalism. I mean, I don't know if that's just a phrase he heard recently and that all the kids are talking about. But I mean, 8 years ago, these aren't phrases, and I think Robin would probably attest to this. That in some way, this is where we see victories, even if they're not playing out in real life yet. But when politicians who would never, talk about this stuff are at least forced to do things like question regime change, forced to do things like use terms like crony capitalism, because even if it's only because they think it might benefit them with some segment of the population, the fact that these are getting into political debate, I think, has to be seen as a positive in some way.
Oh, I'd go even further. I mean,
go all the way.
That's what moving politics is. One thing I talk a lot about, in my speeches and stuff is that historically, and this is just down to human nature, culture precedes politics. And like you say, this is some success. I mean, frankly, maybe O'Malley watched the Ron Paul video recently. Who knows? I mean, there has been a cultural shift. And the things that cause cultural shifts that have political outcomes are shared senses, a shared sense of injustice. And that's why the crony corporatism thing is working so well. Because the culture's moved and there's this sense of, this just ain't right. And that kind of, it transcends ideology. And if you want to, do well as an insurgent, then what you have to do is speak to an injustice that really is just kind of a human injustice and not one that only makes sense because of your political ideology. So here you're seeing it, right? And, I don't think you can, in a way, blame politicians for doing what the people want, because, as I say, politicians, to within quite a large margin of error, can only do what the culture allows them to do. So, and that's kind of what we pay them for, right, is to kind of represent. I mean, we complain when they don't represent us. And now they're moving because we've moved. Yeah, all right. I mean, I think there's worse crimes that politicians commit.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even if someone is necessarily not being genuine to themselves, if they're moving because, like you said, because everyone else is moving, well, good. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to move when we move, and not the other way around. So, I know this is something that, I don't know, a lot of the anarchist wing, I guess, might think a lot like, oh, it's so, what a ridiculous idea, this Kerner guy. He's saying that politicians represent us, and we can point to a million circumstances where politicians go against the will.
Hold on, just let me. I didn't say that.
No, I know. I just know the kind of reactions I'll get.
Hey, Robin, I like that you bring up this sense of like justice or fairness, and I'm wondering what the electorate's going to think about how it seems how much the DNC is kind of trying to rig things for Hillary. Like, these debates are on Saturday nights because probably nobody but us watch them. They're only having 6 debates. So they're like, they might as well just change it to the HNC instead of the DNC. And I really feel like the American people are going to be like, this is not fair.
That's a good line, Howie, the HNC. I'm going to use that sometime. I'm going to steal that from you.
You raise so this is another big theme that I think, good for bringing it up. Let's all be clear. The Republican Party and the Democratic Party are private corporations that are motivated by control. What they want to do is control those within them, like pretty much most organizations, right? And you can see that. I mean, in my state of Washington, there's a wonderful Republican legislator, a guy called Matt Shea. Here's a shout out to Matt Shea. Now, if you're outside Washington, you probably don't know who he is, but if you're in Washington, you probably do. And he's just a down the line, constitutionalist who actually votes for things that are in the Republican Party platform. And the Republicans primary him whenever they can. They do him down whenever they can because he can't be controlled because he's a man of principle. He's like kind of a bit like Washington's Ron Paul, right? And so if you want to understand what the parties do, it's control. Everything is sacrificed on the altar of, can we control the people who basically are standing, under our banner? So, once you know that, you see, as you rightly pointed out, the DNC are doing it. The Republicans are doing it too. 'Twas ever thus. And 'twill ever be, I think.
Oh, the Republicans are trying. They did it to Ron Paul, but now Trump's kind of got the RNC by the balls, threatening this third party run. It's kind of funny seeing them squirm and freak out about all this.
Yeah, it is.
If you guys had to name one, okay, I mean, Donald Trump is kind of taking off. We can't really deny that in so many ways. And do you think there is a DNC equivalent, a Democrat equivalent to Donald Trump? It's obviously not Hillary or O'Malley, so I guess there's only one guy left. I could presume it might be. And I mean, do you think in any way is Bernie capturing sort of the other, I guess, side of what Trump happens to be capturing? I mean, that same feeling of disenfranchisement, of injustice, I guess, that people have. Is he capturing, I guess, the anti-corporation side of that, the people that see that corporations are the ones causing the economic injustice or whatever people might perceive, whereas Trump is coming from the other side and sort of attacking, I guess, the ineptitude of government and how he can turn it into, quote unquote, more like a business or what have you?
I wrote an article about this not that long ago, so I'll shut up and let you other guys talk, but I've got quite a bit to say on that. Yeah,
that's why I teed you up, Robin. Come on, I know what's going on. So why don't you tease your article, and we'll link to it in the show notes as well.
Oh, you want me to? I don't want to be like holding fort here and like keeping.
I'll hold fort. It's all good. Why else? Why have you on otherwise?
I've thought about this before, so go right ahead.
All right. Okay. Great. Okay. Well, thanks, gentlemen. Okay. So I wrote an article called, I think, as Trump and Sanders push the right buttons, the liberty movement must wake up. Which is so. What I said in that article is like, look, you do well politically. You move the dial. You get surges of support by reflecting back to people the injustice they already feel. On the left, Bernie Sanders is doing that by quite legitimately being the guy to deliver the facts that justifies the feeling of injustice, the sense of economic injustice that many people are feeling, right? So like, for example, Sanders put out a video not long ago. The first 5.5 minutes was just a bunch of statistics. It was nicely produced and animated about, all the concentration of wealth in the top 0.1%. Now, and that speaks to this unfairness that loads of people feel that the rest of the political establishment isn't speaking to. So Bernie gets that massive kind of surge of support. Now that's on the left. On the right, you've got Trump, who taps into immigration because people quite rightly, and libertarians don't like to hear this, but people quite rightly feel there's a deep sense of injustice in when we're dealing with security issues and we have a welfare state of people who can just come over the border and the same rules don't seem to apply. People just feel that at a human level, there's something wrong with that. It's not fair. So, but none of the establishment can talk about that, right? Because they're completely inept at fixing it. It's not as hard to fix as they want you to believe, but they're completely inept at fixing it, so they don't talk about it. Republicans, Democrats, difficult. So Trump comes along and just says what a load of people are feeling, that visceral sense of injustice, and there he surges. So here you have it, right? It's the same kind of political communication strategy that you're seeing from Sanders and Trump, and it always works. It has worked. I don't know if I've talked about this on your show before, Mark. I might well have done, but I use this example as such a good one. In the UK, UKIP have done this. In 20 years, they've gone from not existing to a 14% at a general election and actually winning a national election for the European Parliament, right? They call themselves a libertarian democratic party. You can argue with that, but the fact is they're a new insurgent anti-establishment party. And what they do is they just reflect back to their electorate the sense of injustice at laws coming out of a supra-state, the European Union, that they have that are made by people who are not democratically accountable, and the harm that it's been done to communities by uncontrolled immigration also in the UK. Now, whatever you feel about the positions, that's a different question, but that works. You got to reflect back to people where they already are. Now, I'll just finish with this. If you're Sanders and you're doing that, you're the guy giving the information about the economic injustice that everybody feels, then you automatically become the guy who's credible as having the answers to the problem you talk about. Because your political identity is determined by what you talk about before it's determined by what you say about it. So if I'm Bernie Sanders and I obviously really care about this economic injustice thing and I attract people who also care about that, then I'm the guy who's going to, by default, be perceived to have the correct answers. What we're doing wrong in the liberty movement, and I said this in my article, is economic injustice and free markets, that's a liberty issue. That Bernie Sanders video, the first 5.5 minutes, should have been made by Rand Paul. Exactly the same first 5.5 minutes with all those facts. But instead of going off with Bernie's socialist treat the symptoms solutions, Rand Paul voices the causes and talks about treating the causes. If we in the liberty movement were talking about those things that are making Bernie Sanders successful, and we should, because we own economic injustice, right, as an issue, we should own it, then people would be listening to us about the solutions. But we're really bad at it.
You're so right about that. I mean, Rand Paul really should be the Republican Bernie Sanders, and yet when Rand Paul gets up there and has an opportunity, not to get too far off topic, but we're all talking about the same thing. When Rand Paul's up there, he doesn't go into the injustice issue on whether it's criminal injustice, which he's very good on, justice reform, or economic injustice, which he could also speak very, very well on. And I mean, he touches on it. He talks about the Fed, and but he gets too partisan with it. He'll say, "Well, we all know the poorest cities are the ones run by Democrats." And I mean, you're not really reaching out to anybody when you say something like that.
Bernie's not playing that game. Right. See, Bernie's just stopping it, reflecting back to people what they already feel. And it's interesting, isn't it, that the heir to Ron Paul, like literally and politically, is Rand Paul, right? Ron was filling numerous stadia with tens of thousands of young people. Bernie, not Rand, is filling those stadia now with those kind of numbers.
And so is Trump.
Right. So, here's one thing I just want to interject here, because we were talking about how, is Sanders reflective of Trump? But one thing I just want to tell you, we're talking about how Bernie Sanders is tying into this, this sense of injustice, and how, Bernie's, of course, they're all using the 1% number over and over, all three candidates on stage.
I think I heard Bernie say 0.1 this time, didn't he?
Did he?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
If so, that was a step in the right direction.
He should, because we're all in the 1% of the world. If you look at that, it's like if you make over $35,000, you're in the 1% of the whole entire world, which is crazy.
But the point I wanted to get around to is that I think what's interesting is Bernie's got a groundswell behind him, sure, but he's still a vast underdog compared to Clinton. And one of the things I think you have to look at this is, Democrats on the surface, they say, okay, yes, we want to fight back, we want less injustice. But when you look at statistically, a lot of Democrats are actually fairly well off. The people that are supporting the Democratic Party tend to be better educated, tend to have much higher income levels. So I wonder at the end of the day if they say, okay, yeah, well, Bernie's great, but do I really want to take down Wall Street? Do I really want to do this? So in their heart of hearts, I don't know if he's going to get that real support, because a lot of people's economic ties might be to Wall Street. And they might say, Hillary, I like what she's doing because she's not going all the way, and that actually protects my interests. But meanwhile, I can still feel good about myself because I'm saying go Democrats.
I don't know. Even as someone who has never been accused of being on the left, I mean,
never, Howie. Come on, some right-wing Republicans saw you talk out against the war and called you a progressive.
Not that I can remember. I'm usually not, but I mean, I'm with Bernie on war and peace, on civil liberties, but even on economics. I mean, I'm the furthest thing for a socialist there can be. But since we don't have real capitalism here, the unfairness and the corporatism and stuff, I'm like, well, I know he'll do stuff about that. I mean, I don't want his whole program, but.
I mean, yeah, there are certainly.
I know he'll do some things that I like. I'm just like, well, maybe at least we'll have a Republican Congress and won't let him do all the economic crap.
That's been my theory all along. Not that I actually think Bernie has any chance of winning, but I wrote an article about Sanders maybe 6 months ago, just sort of breaking him down from a liberty viewpoint. And he certainly, I think, I don't want to say better than other Democrats, but well, I think he's better than the two on stage, at least.
I mean, look, let's just admit it. I think here's a bunch of liberty folks that if we were stuck with a Democratic candidate, we would choose the self-defined Democratic Socialist among the others.
And it's funny to say, but it's true.
Yeah, it is.
Rand, I would pick Bernie Sanders out of every other candidate from the Republican or Democratic Party.
Well, I don't know. My pal Brian here.
No, I said besides Rand.
Oh, okay.
Rand's my first choice, but
okay. I nearly fell off my seat.
I'm not saying I'm just picking Bernie over the Democrats. I'm picking Bernie over every other Republican candidate.
Oh, I think I agree.
Well, I've got it. Okay, so this is a question. So that's really interesting, because I sympathize with that view very strongly. And I've got a question that speaks to that, which I posted on the Blue Republican Facebook group a while ago. I've made the distinction in articles between the lesser of two evils and the lesser of two goods. And I've said, look, whatever you think about Rand, if you're libertarian or liberty-orientated, you can't call him the lesser of two evils. At worst, he's the lesser of two goods. Let's say your greater of two goods might be Gary Johnson or whoever your favorite libertarian candidate is. Now, Ted Cruz, I am seeing people in the liberty movement support him. And there's little bits of what he says that kind of like scratch a little bit close to where it itches.
He sprinkles some crumbs out for us to sort of see if we'll follow.
So I'm genuinely interested. Is Cruz, to a much lesser extent, a tiny step in the right direction? In the sense, like, is he slightly the lesser?
Robin, I think I can answer this. I agree with Ted Cruz on more than I agree with Bernie Sanders. But the things that I agree with Bernie Sanders on are way more important. Things about war and peace or stopping the drug war. that's way more important than the, maybe 1,000 other things I might agree with Ted Cruz on. So, I mean, that's where I'm coming down.
I think Ted Cruz's strongest issue for liberty folks is the Second Amendment, because he is very, very strong.
No,
on
that in the NSA.
Is Cruz really? Do I trust Cruz on the NSA? No, he was on stage touting the USA Freedom Act. Please defend.
Well,
this.
that is true. He repeatedly does stand. Say he's against NSA spying. He also helped Rand Paul filibuster against the Patriot Act. So I mean,
but Rand was also filibustering against the same thing that ended up in the USA Freedom Act, which Ted Cruz is up there touting as a wonderful thing. So again, I don't want to believe he's a dummy and doesn't realize what the USA Freedom Act really is, because he's not. He's clearly extremely intelligent. He might actually be the smartest person on that stage. So I mean, maybe if I didn't believe his intellect was what it is, I could buy that. But he to me, he feels, and like Howie said, I might agree on 1,000 different things, statements that Ted Cruz might make than Bernie, but I don't feel like Bernie is a slime bag, and I do kind of feel like Ted Cruz is, and maybe that's more of an emotional statement than anything else, but I think it's also backed up by some facts. If you look at a lot of Cruz's positions, how they can constantly change, how he seems to dabble his toe in the sort of the Trump Rand Paul water, sort of speak out against regime change, sort of speak out against some things, but then he also has to go sort of full neocon. He's kind of playing the game a lot of people Rand thought was playing, the kowtow to the libertarian side and the neocon side, and apparently he's doing it more effectively because he's doing better in the polls a lot better in the polls than just about everyone, I think, now, except for Trump.
When you asked if Bernie was the Trump, if that was a good comparison, in my mind, it's like, no, he's more like the Ron Paul, because he's a true believer. He's not trying to manipulate people like Cruz or Trump or all these others probably are. Like, when I look at him, he believes what he says, which is, that's a lot to say for a politician,
Yeah, I wasn't drawing a similarity, just to be clear, in motivation and principle in the nature of the man, not in any way at all. Just in its similarity in that they're both effective insurgents to
I see,
large
yeah.
community
definitely.
on the respective political sides that doesn't feel, that the establishment is responding to them. They're both having success at that.
And right. I think the big thing that you mentioned earlier, Robin, is how, I mean, they come across as an authority on these subjects with the solutions because they're pointing out the problems that resonate with people. Yeah. But it doesn't matter what those solutions actually are. I mean, I've even heard people say, like, they support Sanders because he's for something different and wants to change things, and all they know is that things are bad. He wants to change them, and I've heard people actually say, even if it's worse, we got to at least try something, which is, to me, a very scary way to view politics. Just try things until something, quote-unquote, works. Well, I mean, every law works for somebody and hurts other people, so that's a terrible way to look at things, but sadly, that is how most people tend to view politics.
Yeah, but you're dealing with human nature here. Like, this is profound. This is profoundly
That's why you're here, to steer us in the right direction.
Well, yeah, I mean, this speaks to what we discussed 10 minutes ago, right? Which is, you get support by telling people what they already feel, not what they should believe, right? And what people feel is the problem. So it is always the case that the solutions have much less of an impact on a politician's getting support than their statement of problems. Always the case. Human nature.
Let's talk about one guy who isn't getting much love from anybody, but he's up there, so we
Brian McWilliams?
He's getting
Brian
love
McWilliams,
from me.
yes, everybody. Close, very close. And that's, of course, Martin O'Malley, Brian's long-lost Irish cousin. And Brian, I think, more than any of us, has pointed out some points that O'Malley seems better than the others, on at least in some of his statements. So why don't I start with the O'Malley fan? I saw a bumper sticker, McWilliams O'Malley,
yeah.
2016.
Well, I have to, of course, put this in the context of, yes, he has some very large warts. I mean, he has some horrible points of view, like on guns, etc.
Where are these warts? Have you seen them?
Healthcare. I've seen the pictures on the internet.
Sorry, okay.
So
I live right next to his state, so I feel it more.
You felt his warts. Anyway, moving on. So, basically, he had some points during this debate, and he's had some in the last debate as well, which you got to say, kudos. Like, he had made a great, he was the only one to bring up crony capitalism in the last debate. He also, I just like this because I loved him taking a shot at Hillary, but he took a shot at Hillary for not answering the question on Wall Street when she was pressed on it, and instead pushing it off to a 9/11 topic. O'Malley also spoke out against regime change and said that U.S. should not. I remember he had a great quote in the debate where he said, "Where in the U.S. Constitution does it say that the United States gets to decide when dictators' time to go?" or something along those lines, paraphrasing. So he mentions a lot of really great topics, and he gets in some great lines that if you're a liberty, if you're someone that believes in liberty and the tenets of liberty, you say, okay, wow, that's a great point. Of course, then he undoes all of that with his later statements like Second Amendment rights and things along those lines.
Oh, I mean, I think he's
Brian. At first, I just thought this was all your pro-Irish bias, but he said all these things, and I was like, those are awesome points. I really agree with O'Malley on all this stuff. But then he would say other things unrelated that if you were like a principled person that applies the same principles to like each issue, it's like that's totally against what you had just said about this other thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, I believe at one point he said something along the lines of that famous sort of catchphrase, like we shouldn't be giving up our liberties for some perceived additional security, while the guy at the same time calls for massive gun control
on guns.
And then they the moderator asked him, oh, so when you say you want to institute a assault weapon ban, do you want to confiscate weapons that already are out there? And he kind of said no, but then kind of doubled down and said, but we should institute this law. And he really didn't make any sense on the gun thing. And the one question I wish one moderator in any debate for any side would ask is of a politician, at least one who supports quote unquote assault weapon laws, is can you please define assault weapon?
Yeah, because
I would love to hear that question.
They're going to give the wrong answer.
There's no answer. That's why.
Exactly.
It's impossible to give a right
And they're
answer.
going to say, oh, machine guns. It's like, no, that's not what they are.
Someone on stage, I think it was Bernie, I was disappointed. He's like, we can't have these automatic weapons and make us like they're not automatic.
No.
They're semi-automatic.
Automatics are illegal.
Each time you pull the trigger, a bullet fires. It's not hold it down and it sprays.
Right.
Those are mostly illegal right now. God.
I mean, some people can get them with special licenses, but either way, that's not the weapon that's been used in any of the mass shootings.
No, that's not available to the mass public. You have to go through a lot of scrutiny to be able to purchase something like that.
And again, not to get too far off topic, but what am I talking about? That's all we do on the show. Another thing that drives me crazy about the gun control thing is when people quote these statistics like this gun can fire 17,000 bullets a second. I'm like, well, no, maybe it might be physically capable of that if a human could pull it that fast,
right.
But no human can pull it that fast. So no gun can actually do that in reality. Nonsense.
I was disappointed in Bernie Sanders, because he is a supporter of the Second Amendment, and obviously his state is very.
I would say ish. After
he's been getting pulled to the left on this, and
been.
It's sad to see. That was one of the things that I liked about him. It's like, well, he's not as bad as the other Democrats on gun rights.
Yeah, well, that's what
he's
irked
getting
me.
Dragged that direction.
Yeah, in the debate last night, he didn't say, "No, guns are bad," but when he asked, he's like,
that was
"Oh,
a terrible Bernie impression." But
well, hey, if you could do a better one, please teach me.
But I do like.
I think I can.
But anyway, he just glanced over. He's like, "Oh yeah, guns are fine, but we still need to do something." He just went right off the topic.
In my
so we wouldn't have to go
in my state of Vermont, it's a very rural state. There are many people that own guns and they go out hunting and they go shooting for recreation. But it's a different situation in the urban areas. He asked me to do a better impression, and I did.
I was just.
I don't know.
Better than what you did. Come on.
I was just in Vermont like last year for a yoga retreat, and you just like going into like any little gas station store, like everybody's open carry and got a gun on the hip, and it's
In the yoga retreat?
no. It just in Vermont, like.
Oh my God! I just had a brilliant idea. It's yoga pants that have a holster built into them, for the rugged yogi out there.
The men should, no matter what, never ever wear yoga pants.
I agree with that.
Different.
Maybe not for men. It's for
no, not
sexy
at the yoga retreat.
Second Amendment
but,
women.
Just in like if you go into like a gas station, ever like all the customers, everybody's got a gun on them, and it's cool. It's a neat thing about Vermont being such a liberal place to like, they believe in defending yourself, and it's awesome.
All right, let's talk a little more realpolitik for a second here. First of all, do these debates matter in any way? I mean, do you think these debates are swaying anybody's opinion, especially considering they're on Saturdays? Hardly anybody's watching them. I can tell from our website traffic that less of our fans watch them. Maybe because it's a Democrat debate, but maybe because it's freaking Saturday night, and people that aren't insane political nerds like us are not sitting at home Saturday night watching this
and
stuff.
it's 2 damn hours long. It's like,
yeah, I think this is almost 3.
Yeah, I thought it was
or
like
2.5
or 4.
Yeah, it was long. It never ended.
I missed the whole UFC fight night because of it. That's all I know.
That's dedication, Howie.
Wow.
I hope you DVR'd it.
Yeah, I've been watching it this afternoon.
Okay, good. In preparation for this conversation.
Nude and oiled up, the way you should watch UFC.
Oh boy. You're letting Robin see what really goes on in the show.
Yeah, I don't know if they. I mean, do they matter? I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's really been any huge shift. You know, Bernie Sanders still is about the same level of support I think that he has. I haven't seen a big increase in that. Hillary's still the leader. O'Malley's still struggling behind. It has no grasp on anything. He's not climbing anything. So I don't know if they matter or not. Hillary Clinton was kind of a foregone favorite slash pretty much locked in. I don't think that's changed much.
Brian, these levels of support you're talking about, though, like Obama had around the same as Bernie at this time in the election when he ran against Hillary. And we heard like Rand was just saying, these polls don't mean anything. We're going to shock the world. Like, maybe these polls are just nonsense. Like, they're not calling cell phones, so no young people are given their
Well,
votes.
I do agree with that because Mark and I did a Rand pluses and minuses podcast discussing exactly that. The polls are they're just total horse.
If Sanders wins in New Hampshire, he's going to get so much more media attention, and I could see everything flipping on Hillary.
It happened once. It happened 8 years ago, so it's certainly
God,
not
I
out of the
hope
question.
It happens again. That, and I really hope she gets indicted because she should.
And I don't think that will ever happen, but I do think that if Bernie wins a primary or something, or Iowa somehow, I mean, I think the venom is, what's the word I'm looking for? The gloves are going to come off. I hate cliches. Why did I say that? You know what I'm saying, though.
We're going to get out there. We're going to play hard, gang. You just got to do what you can do and take a one-day debate at a time.
Fill in all
Iowa
sports cliches.
Come on, pull up a knee.
Does that affect his chances of being a caucus state? And what do they have to do with the caucus?
Well, it's more.
Who's got a better ground game? Do young people matter? I don't know.
I don't know, Robin. What do you think? Do the youth on the ground that are touted by both Rand Paul and Bernie Sanders as I guess the key to their campaign? Is this a real thing that can actually be effective, or is this just
Well, it can be. In my district in Seattle, which is 87% Democrat, the Republicans had a caucus, in 2012, and Ron Paul won it.
Wait, that wasn't on the news.
No, it wasn't, was it? So super liberal King County did really well for Ron Paul. As I say, in the middle of the Seattle itself, he won. My precinct, it was really interesting. There were 8 people from my precinct at the table. 7 of them had voted Obama the last time round, and I think all 8 were there for Ron Paul. Wow. It was astonishing. Here were the blue Republicans, right? It was a real thing. So yeah, of course, it can, but it depends on the ground game, and I have no idea as to what his ground game is in these caucus states.
Is somebody using a hand blender in the background to make icing? What was that?
System has started making a strange noise. I'm going to turn it off.
Oh no, we don't want Robin to freeze to death up there in bitter cold Seattle. How was the weather like up there, Robin, today? Is it raining? He might be off turning the heater off.
He's
right
probably
now,
off. Yeah.
It's been super warm in Virginia.
I'm back.
All right. I hope you don't. If you start to, if we hear you stop talking, I'll assume that you're just frozen with like an icicle on the end of your nose.
His teeth will start chattering the entire rest of the show.
Sorry about that, gentlemen.
Oh, it's all good. Oh man, it's so hard to think of where to go with these debates because there's not 18 candidates for me to jump to. So I'm not sure how much deeper we can get on these specific candidates. But
Let me ask you guys a question then.
Yes, go for it.
So here's one thing that I thought when I was listening to O'Malley, which is that the worst thing, I might be overstating this, but what do you think? The worst thing that a candidate can do on a debate stage is appear to be trying too hard. Because I couldn't get past that with O'Malley and also with a few of the Republican candidates. It's like, it was all scripted. It was all like, he's going to cram in as much of all the cool stuff he's done. Like, I didn't get to find out anything about the guy except he was a bit insecure.
Yeah, he seems to have taken Jim Webb's place as the guy that's saying, hey, look at me. Hey, come on, let me talk more. Well, there's probably, and I guess, I don't know what's in Martin O'Malley's heart. Part of me wonders why he's even running. Is he just trying to be Hillary's VP or maybe run for Senate soon or something like that, raising his national profile kind of thing. But if he is genuine and does really want to be president, he's probably extremely frustrated that nobody talks about him.
Last podcast, I brought up that poll by that college that predicted a Bernie Sanders, Martin O'Malley ticket winning. They predicted the correct president the last 40 years in a row. Just so you know.
Interesting.
But anyways, his state of Maryland is probably tied with your state of California and New Jersey for the worst gun laws in the whole country.
That sounds
Me
about
being
right.
a Virginian and living right next to that and just hearing like the horror stories of people that get in so much trouble for nonsense, it makes it really hard for me to ever like listen to Martin O'Malley.
Oh yeah, no, I mean when he's talked about guns, I mean that's when I have to go, oh god.
I mean,
I don't know about
that's
this
got to
guy.
be his worst thing. I'm assuming there's probably some like economic stuff us as libertarians are going to be pretty opposed to as well.
He's the anti-Ted Cruz on the left, whereas the issue that Ted Cruz is excellent on is the Second Amendment that libertarians might flock to, and at the same time, I think libertarians will just run the hell away from O'Malley because he's so awful on guns, unapologetically. At least Bernie's kind of like, oh, they're not bad, but yeah, we need laws. And then Hillary is bad, but she doesn't she still does try to toe the line a little bit. Like when they asked her if we should ban guns, she didn't come out and say ban them. She said, well, no, it's not guns alone, but she just says more weapons on the street won't help. So she's kind of saying the same thing, but doing it in a little more political way. Is it just
me, or I don't believe anything she says, even when she's talking about
zero.
It's like, well, we don't want to have ground troops going to these places, or we'll have some special operations and that. I'm like, I hear you saying that, and I kind of sort of agree, but I think you're a liar, and I don't think that's true at all. I think you will go to war in all of these places.
I mean, that's the thing about Hillary. For me, it's I can't, even if she does say 3 things I might like in another universe where I didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
I don't live in another universe. I live in this one where we have 30 years of history showing what a corrupt, complete politician she is. And honestly, the fact that she has any support is mind-boggling, but I guess it shouldn't be.
But it shouldn't, it shouldn't be, because
it's mind-boggling to me.
This is the country of celebrity. It is, right? Yeah. And she's the closest thing to political celebrity. No, Trump and her. Like, Americans love celebrity. It's all about name recognition. I mean, that's 80% of it.
Well, like, celebrity or royalty. I mean, essentially, when you look at the Clintons, they are American royalty.
Her name recognition, though, guarantees that every Republican comes out and votes against her. Is every Democrat like all gung-ho fired up to come out and vote for her? I'm not so sure.
She's got she has had significant negatives. You know what I mean? But big positives.
Like, people haven't they done these polls? Like, people say, they're like, okay, Clinton, first word comes to your mind, liar. Like, corrupt. Like, they're like, oh yeah, we like her better, a lot of Republicans, but we don't like her, we don't trust her. Are you gonna get out of bed and go vote for her? I don't know.
Howie, I don't know how much you experience this out there. I think it's kind of a mixed bag for you. But out here in California, and I would imagine up where Robin is in Seattle, I meet a lot of Bernie supporters. And a lot of them are very anti-Hillary, too. I mean, they will even come out and post things. I saw people posting videos today comparing Hillary, things she was saying in the debate, versus all the Republican candidates. And there's no worse smear for a progressive than to compare you to a Republican. So there's a very strong anti-Hillary sentiment. At the same time, the cynic in me, and someone correct me if they think that this is going to happen any differently, but I really think that at the end of the day, Bernie is there, whether he intends to be there for this reason or not, to fire up the progressive base, get them all ready for this election, and I think eventually he's going to bow out and happily endorse Hillary Clinton.
I don't think so. He wouldn't be threatening a lawsuit against the DNC.
I don't think he's happy now. I just think at the end of the day,
I don't think he's willing. I don't think he's trying to support Clinton.
I don't think he's trying to do that now. I just think that's going to be the end result of this. Because I remember Dennis Kucinich, guys. Remember how everyone. I mean, for a while, Dennis Kucinich was considered the Ron Paul of the Democratic Party. Back in 2008, he was the guy sticking to principle. Even once again, just like Bernie, when we don't agree with the principles, we still see him as this honest guy who's not a party hack. And what does he do towards the end of the election? He comes out and endorses Obama and tells all his supporters, yes, we don't agree on these things, on X amount of things, but at the end of the day, well, we certainly can't have the Republican. And I think Bernie will do the same thing. He'll say, look, hey, we can't have Donald Trump in there. We've got to support Hillary. So,
Bernie pretty much did say that on the stage.
Exactly. That's why I predicted.
He said any one of us on our worst day is better than, any of the Republicans on their best.
Which is exactly what the Republicans, even Rand Paul, go out there and say. They all say, well, no matter what, at least we're better than Hillary or any Democrat. I mean, which is just,
well,
I hate that.
They are all better than Hillary.
I mean, I mostly think I maybe agree.
By the way, did you guys catch Hillary?
I'm pretty certain I would vote for Satan over Hillary.
Yeah.
Did you hear? By the way, she was pressed on. I don't think this is
Trump over Hillary. No, I'm just kidding.
Definitely. But did you hear her say she was basically? They asked her about different interventions, and I can't remember if it was tied into the Libya question or not. But she basically said, she goes, well, whether it's dealing with ISIS in Africa or the Middle East, where she's like,
Asia.
we'll have to go. Yeah, Asia. She's like, we'll have to go wherever they're at, and and you'll
Cover,
get
like, the whole
involved
world.
and basically advocated like airstrikes and everything across the world. I think that was like earlier in the debate, but
She's
it
like,
just shows
hey,
you
I'm
how.
a world traveler. I'll go anywhere.
Yeah, but it just shows
Want
you.
World War III, there's your candidate.
Yeah, she
As
is.
Rand
She
Paul would
is
say.
essentially Republican when it comes to her views on war.
Who's
and
not
intervention.
your candidate if you want World War III? I guess Bernie and O'Malley, if you believe their statements. But I mean,
And our boy Rand. And
Rand. I'm just talking about the Democrats for the moment. But yeah, I mean, I want to believe Bernie is better than the most, but he's supported Democrat wars in the past. I don't think he would instigate them, but I think he could be talked into supporting some. You know,
Martin O'Malley is certainly better on war and peace, anti-regime change, all that kind of nonsense. I mean, as much of the hate I've given on him, if it's him versus like probably just about any Republican, I would probably vote for him. Not that I mean,
how he just came out and endorsed the worst guy on guns. Did you hear that, everybody? I'm going to clip that audio and put it out there so people know that you are the real O'Malley supporter here.
But do you think we could? I mean, this is like we talked about this with Bernie Sanders before and his economic views, and we compared it to kind of Ron Paul and his statements previously, where he wanted to get rid of the Board of Education, all that stuff. Some of these stances, we're never going to get rid of the Second Amendment. There's only so much you can do, and so you say, okay, he's terrible on guns, but is that ever going to happen? Are we ever really going to roll this out or be able to? And I say no.
If they tried to like confiscate the guns in America like they did in Australia, it's Civil War Part 2.
Definitely.
Electric Boogaloo.
I mean, they could pass a quote-unquote assault weapons ban. It's not like that hasn't happened in somewhat recent history. But although I did see a poll today that for the first time like ever, Americans even reject that idea, let alone the fact that there's no such thing as an assault weapon. But
yeah,
well, they've never
done.
stage.
They've never done one that's like retroactive though, where you have to like if you have one, you have to turn it in. It's like no more from now on.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, they brought it up on stage during a question. They said that in a recent poll, Americans, by a decent majority, said the answer to domestic terrorism was to have more people armed in the country. So whether why would any plan to roll back the Second Amendment or make it more difficult to get guns or restrict them or take them back, proceed if this is the way the majority of Americans are feeling right now?
How about apart from like just what people think will help or make things better, we had an assault weapon ban for 10 years. Didn't help anything. Didn't do anything. Like we have the data. If we want to use like reason and scientific
even though we don't make these decisions about our views on data, a lot of other people do, and they're not even being consistent based on data. So
that's how I try to live my life, and I encourage our listeners look
based
at
on
data. Let's follow facts. Let's not go by emotional arguments, get riled up, and go attack somebody. Or
if we did that, our foreign policy would be vastly different. Look at the last 60 years of American foreign policy. Every time you see what's happened, and we keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Trump, though, he is tapping into that. He knows everyone has an emotional reaction, and the candidates are trying to play to emotional hype. What gets people like? We're not talking about what works or what is going to get people worked up and come vote for me.
Well, it's just like Robin was saying earlier. That's exactly the point you had made earlier, Robin, is tying into kind of the things that people are outraged against, or they see as an injustice or something that's an immediate danger, and not even presenting the solution, which Trump never does that either. He always, like look at his internet things, like, let the smart guys figure it out. It's like, they just bring up the topic. They don't need to solve it. They just tend to get people riled up. They say, they're going to deal with it. Okay, oh yeah, and then they, who cares if they have a real solution for it that actually would work.
That is the solution, though. He will hire smart people. That's how he's running his businesses. He doesn't make decisions. He just hires smart people.
I don't doubt that any of these guys are smart and that many of the people that work in government are smart. The thing is, if you have bad ideas and you're smart at implementing them, that doesn't really give me any comfort. That actually worries me more. But maybe I'm just... Once again, I'm the king of the cynics here. I think that everything's going to shake out in the most boring way possible. Although I'm more convinced about the Democratic side than the Republican side. I'm not quite sure what's going to happen there. Although I actually think, talking about polls and the irrelevancy of polls, I actually think Trump support is underpolled, if you can believe that. Because I find out about people that are Trump supporters every day that I was like, what? Really? I think he's tapping into people that don't get polled. I think he's tapping into people that don't give a shit about politics because he's freaking Donald Trump, and people are starting to realize that he's for real. And once again, regardless of what his solutions are, I don't even think he has real solutions. I think he has, a lot of just bold statements he makes. And they're like Robin has said, like we've been saying over and over, he taps into that sentiment, that feeling of injustice. And maybe after 8 years of Democrats and Obama, he has the better chance at actually capturing that in reality, which is crazy.
And, and the metric, is as I say, is name recognition, right? So when he says something outrageous, he gets the media coverage, more name recognition.
And then all the other candidates play right into it by all going out and attacking him, which Rand does all the time, which I don't think benefits him at all.
No.
I hate to say it, fellas, but after Rand and after Bernie, I think Trump would be my third choice, just because he's not beholden to the parties, and he says a lot of things I agree with, and a lot of stuff that I think that's awful, that's horrible. But I don't think he actually means it. Might be wishful thinking on my part. I don't know.
Well, he's a bit like Clinton in regards that his viewpoints change so often. You know, there's video of him going back and forth on these things where he was against it, now he's for it, he was for it, now he's against it. So
it really seems to me that he says something super extreme, then walks it back.
You
and
know
that's
what?
like I think his real position is the walked back position, but as like a negotiator, you got to start for like something more and then bring it back.
That's an interesting
That's
take.
my take.
That's an
my
interesting
take.
take.
That's part of what Scott Adams, Robin, I don't know if you've read about this at all, but you know, this Scott Adams, he's the author of the Dilbert comic strip, and he's actually written a series of blog posts about Trump's tactics and how he basically says Trump is a wizard. He uses these sort of hypnotism tactics in his speech and part of his strategy is making big, bold statements that he has no intention of actually trying to follow through on, but then he gets the attention from that, then he walks it back to something that sounds more reasonable, and suddenly he sounds more reasonable compared to himself, but it sounds good now, which is crazy, because like, hey, don't listen to that other crazy me, listen to this me now, and it works. It works.
And he already, his crazy statement got all the media attention, so he's the only person we even heard about. He's had 38 times more media coverage than Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, no, that's his game, you see, because, you know, people, again, they're looking at the content, but it's never about the content. This guy, he's a salesman and a showman, right? So when he's saying something, his what makes him feel good, what he's feeding off is the attention. So what he does, if he gets the positive feedback, you know, he makes a certain statement in a certain direction and it goes down, he gets away with it and it increases his coverage, then he's just going to push it one more step. And that's his thing, because he's feeding off the attention, which I think is why he's thoroughly dangerous. But no, that's it. And of course, because name recognition and attention are what make you popular and get people to vote for you, especially in this country, you know, that correlates, maybe not completely, but quite strongly with, potential success at the ballot box and certainly success in the polls. I mean, none of it's very difficult to understand if you can just step out of the illusion that we have about what really politics is and remember what in fact politics is.
And Robin, I'm curious your thoughts on this, because this is something our colleague John Odermatt brought up on when we discussed the Republican debate. And first of all, I just have to say, evidence that Trump is effective is right here on this podcast, because we are doing a Democrat debate reaction show, and we can't even avoid talking about Donald Trump half the time. So proof here.
And neither could they during the debate. They all brought him up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he's their Hillary.
His campaign is brilliant. I give him that. I haven't seen anything this amazing in politics ever.
No, it's pretty crazy. So, guys, we have to get to the most important question from the debate. What do you think that the role of a president's spouse should be?
I'll say,
was that the most ridiculous question ever asked in a debate?
I'd like to preface this with, I would love to see a female president. So, president's spouse, I could be talking about a man or a woman.
Yeah, it'd be Bill Clinton.
I say the role should be seen and not heard.
Yeah, like the Milford Academy.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually the only point in favor of Hillary for me, just from a sort of spectator standpoint, is seeing Bill Clinton as first husband would be just entertainment galore.
Well,
let's be honest.
Rico made a great comment about this during the live blog yesterday, because they're doing this whole president's spouse with what should their role be, and he makes a great point is, they shouldn't have any role. They're unelected. Why should an unelected person have a massive impact?
To comfort their spouse after work.
It's like Hillary, when she was first lady, she was pushing through a massive healthcare overhaul. Michelle Obama's pushed through a massive school lunch care overhaul. It's like, why should she be able to do anything? You're not elected. Quit doing anything. Sit there.
Her healthcare plan back then was worse than Obamacare. It was awful. They would have people come to your house for well checks, make sure your children are okay, or they get taken away and
Wow.
Yeah, man, that was way back in the old days when I became a libertarian.
Look at Howie trying to tout his libertarian street.
You're like Martin O'Malley calling out the age
International Society for Individual Liberty told me how awful Hillary's health plan was, and I believed it.
This is why he's the Godfather. I don't know if you know this, Robin.
My grandparents told me she had Vince Foster killed, and I believe them on that too. So
I believe your grandparents too. Robin, Howie is actually the person who, I guess, first set me down the path of the ideas of liberty, and then Brian kind of did through me, so that's why we sort of refer to him as the Godfather, because way back in way back in high school, Howie was actually a page in Washington, D.C. and actually met Ron Paul, and that's where he started telling me, hey, listen to this Ron Paul guy. He's really cool.
And he's got some great stories. Who's the guy you were working for, Howie?
Well, I was appointed by Congressman Konjorsky. Nothing shady about him, but
Right.
I have stories about other members of Congress.
That's what it was. Yeah, some interesting tales. Well, another time for another debate on that, or another podcast dedicated just
actually,
to Howie's
one
stories from the trenches.
You know what?
one quick page story.
All right, let's do it.
A friend of mine. I mean, we were all kind of fell into that libertarian thing. We didn't
Remember,
like
this is gonna
socialism,
air.
this and that. My friend Clinton was like, I don't want to deliver stuff to Bernie Sanders. Obviously, he's a socialist. Screw him. I'm like, fine, I'll take it there. I hated socialism. I walk in, he had beautiful girls working in there. I walk in, I'm like, oh my God, maybe socialism's not, but no. Who do you think? No. But it was confusing to the 17-year-old mind. Those beautiful.
That's how they get you, man. It's
my libertarian ideals.
It's like the Odyssey in Ulysses, though. You see those beautiful women, you start to go towards them, then bam, your ship's crashed on the rocks.
Do you think Rand Paul's got any hot chicks working in his office?
I'm sure he does.
I think he should have his wife out campaigning for him more.
She is good looking.
All right, let's not get too far off the rails of misogyny here, fellas.
Hey, we're talking about spouses.
This is true.
What role would Rand Paul's wife be?
It's all related. But we're kind of winding towards the end of the show, so I want to kind of do what we did towards the end of the GOP debate reaction show, and that is make some bold predictions, because we've got a little under a month until the next Democratic debate. So I just want to go to each person and from now and then, make one bold prediction of what will happen in the Democratic Party, and maybe that prediction is that nothing will happen, but that's not that bold. But between now and the next Democratic debate, will we see any shakeups? Will Martin O'Malley leave the race? Will the polls tip one way or the other? What do you guys think? We'll start with Howie.
Nothing changes until people start voting. If it's gonna flip, that's when it'll happen. Once New Hampshire and Iowa starts voting, if there's this grassroots that we don't know about that aren't getting called on their cell phones for polls, that's when we're going to know if Bernie Sanders has a chance.
So you think that really nothing scandalous, nothing crazy happens between now and the next debate, but you do think that...
I mean, I don't think
once
they can really
voting
make
starts.
much hay out of this fake scandal about the Bernie Sanders looking into Hillary's voter information thing. Like, that's just a bunch of trumped up nonsense. I don't know if you heard his explanation at the debate, but I'm pretty sure what he was saying was accurate.
He was basically, I mean, to me, he was kind of implying that he was set up, right? I mean, sort of. It seemed that way to me.
And something I found out today, that software that wasn't working properly, and they ended up with that information. I think like the Clinton Foundation, like giving all this money to that company and all this crap. So that
sounds right.
It's so super shady. And being the Clintons, it's
All right, I'm actually going to extend my question mid-question. You're, from now on, you're allowed to include bold predictions that go through the first primaries. How about that? So that being said, which you just did, Howie. So no, let's go further then. What do you actually think will occur? Let's just say Iowa, New Hampshire, when it comes to the Democrats, and we'll revisit this prediction in a month when we look at the next debate. How about that?
Is there money? Do we win it for right?
you just win like a Liberty Award. You win a Lions of Liberty mug. How about that?
I'll take it.
All right. So what's your actual prediction though? Like, do you think Bernie is going to win Iowa or New Hampshire?
I think he's going to win New Hampshire. I don't know if that's just my wishful thinking, but
well, it's a bold prediction.
That's
so
what I'm
we'll
at least
take
trying to convince myself of.
All right, let's move over to Brian here. What's your bold prediction, if any? But hopefully there is, because if not, I feel. Well, you go ahead.
I'll make a
I want to make a prediction about what your prediction is, but that's just that's going too deep.
I'll make a proclamation. Martin O'Malley wins the president. No. I think I think two things will happen. I agree with Howie. I think that Bernie Sanders will win in New Hampshire. And I think that before the primaries, there's going to be some bombshell is going to come out about Hillary Clinton that further damages her and could impact her.
I don't believe.
I'm serious. I think it's going to happen.
Hillary is Teflon. Nothing can damage her.
Well, it's already the
Benghazi,
email thing has hurt her.
Email. How has it hurt her?
I think,
among who?
like how I was saying earlier, the most Googled terms, like Hillary Clinton comes up with like liar, stuff like that. So I think something else is going to come out. I think that or maybe it might be the FBI indicting her for
indicting her,
indicting her, because there was just a recent interview with the guy that's doing the investigation saying, look, we're not playing politics, we're going after her. If there's something there, we're going to do it. I think they're going to charge her with something.
Because I don't.
I do.
In the past has done things like that, like if you're not going to bring these charges, I'm going to resign. He might do something big in public like that.
Yeah, so I could see that happening sometimes in the next couple months.
I think that would be enough to hurt her I don't think they will ever like actually convict her of anything.
No, but they might.
I just want
she might
charges to be
it.
brought or some big thing to happen because charges should be brought.
So that's my prediction.
All right, and Robin,
FBI, you're our only hope.
That's a frightening phrase, actually.
It really is.
So, Robin, what about you? Between now and say Iowa, New Hampshire, what do you think is going to happen with this Democratic Party? Is there going to be a shakeup, or is this going to happen in the boring way that I think it'll happen?
Bold predictions are against my religion. I have no clue. I mean, there are just so many variables.
All right, let me flip
you don't know anything about. And one thing I know, one thing I will predict is that everybody will that the overwhelming majority of people who make predictions will be shown to know a lot less than they think they know.
This is true. So why don't I flip the question on you then and ask you what you would like to see happen? I guess from a liberty viewpoint, what do you think is best in the long term, if anything, or maybe just an entertainment viewpoint, whatever way you want to come at it.
Oh my God! Well, we want I think we want a Rand versus Sanders runoff, don't we?
That would definitely be. I don't think anybody can disagree with that.
That's what I'd like to see.
All right.
Yeah.
And me. My bold prediction is that nothing bold will occur and that Hillary Clinton is going to win Iowa, and then she's going to win New Hampshire, and then she's going to win all the other states, and that's what's going to. And then Bernie Sanders will drop out and endorse her. That's my prediction.
Mark, I want to ask you for a prediction. Who has a more likely chance of becoming the president, Pataki or Mitt Romney?
That's not really a prediction. That's not Mitt Romney, like ever, or in this. That's a really random question.
This election. Do you think they might drag him in during the if there's like a broker convention and make Mitt Romney the savior, sacrificial alus to Clinton Lamb?
Do you think that could happen?
Yeah, I don't think.
I actually think I don't think that's likely. But to answer the question, I think it's more likely than George Pataki being president or
Me
nominee.
too. I don't think it's likely either, but I think it's more likely than Pataki or Graham or Santorum or Huckabee winning.
That's probably true. I would agree. All right, gentlemen. Well, it has been a fun time because, as much as we might not necessarily enjoy the content of these debates, and especially the Democratic debate, maybe, hey, let's be honest. None of us would be doing this show right now if we weren't total political nerds. So I know we all enjoy it in our own various ways. Robin, it was a blast, as always, to have your perspective and have you on the show, especially this Democratic show, because I know you have an ability and a deep knowledge, I guess, of how people look at things from all sides. And, you were, I think, instrumental in bringing a lot of, progressives or people that identify that way into the Liberty Ron Paul movement.
Yeah, that's
Robin's
true.
You're kind of a modern bourbon Democrat, if you remember back with the Grover Cleveland days.
I don't remember them. I wasn't there, but yeah, that has been said, I think, a couple of times. Actually, thanks for mentioning it. From inside the campaign, the Ron Paul campaign in 2012, I was told that by their numbers, the Blue Republican was the single biggest coalition numerically for Ron Paul, a coalition born on the progressive Huffington Post, which I do kind of like as a claim to fame.
Well, kudos.
I tip my hat to you, sir.
Right.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, folks, and that is it for today's reaction show. Join us again this coming Thursday when myself and the Lions of Liberty crew have another little special for you. It's actually going to be our holiday special where we will hand out our Naughty or Nice awards for the year. So that should be fun. I have a feeling there's going to be more naughty than nice for Liberty, but we shall see. Brian, you look like you have something to say. Is that true?
No, I absolutely don't.
That's just the look that's always on your face.
I'm wincing because I have terrible sciatic pain right now.
We could do a whole podcast about Brian's back pain, but we'll spare everybody.
Was
Howie,
this supposed
final
to be
thoughts?
Libertarians in living room drinking liquor? Because I've been drinking bourbon this whole time.
You know what? I just assumed you were drinking the whole time, but I knew that I wasn't.
Thought we were supposed to.
I didn't want to call myself out as being a wuss or Brian or Robin.
I had a sip before I came, but I'm not. I just drinking water during it.
But it does comfort me to know that you. I mean, it's closer to night for you. We're on the West Coast. You're in the evening,
right.
so it's okay for you to be. I mean, it would be okay for any of us, but come on. All right, guys. Once again, thank you so much, Robin, for coming on the show. Until this Thursday, until our holiday special, folks, why don't you just join me in signing off with everyone until our next episode. Until then, folks, why don't you guys just go ahead and live long
and live free. So would Bernie Sanders be like, yeah, into that, hearing that sign off, do you think?
Do you think he'd want us to live free?
I don't know if he'd want us to live long, though, because then it would get into that whole, how are you going to pay for that with your
kind
healthcare
of
plan,
Social
Bernie?
Security.
You know, I mean, trillions upon trillions of dollars if we live that long.
Hey, Robin, thanks a lot for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it.
And may I use this audio for my show?
Yes, absolutely.
By all
Fire away.
means.
As long as you tell your audience how wonderful the Lions of Liberty are and all that stuff. And
But you just did if I use this audio, so we're good.
Good point. That is a good point.
Nice.
Head of editing and mastering is John Dauber.
Contact Johnny50